Okay. All right, we should be recording. Is everybody seeing that? Yep, okay. All right, good morning. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Saturday Morning Mastermind. I'm your host, Samantha Studebaker-Carl, broadcasting to you from Indianapolis, Indiana, and I'm here with my good friends Karen and Catherine and Dan. And today is the first day of our new book discussion. We're talking about the book Leonardo and Gabriel by Tim Tigner or Tigner. I'm not sure how you pronounce that. Tigner. So we're going to start this discussion today. But before we get going with that, I just wanted to let everybody know that if you'd like to participate in this discussion, you can do so. You'll just have to jump over to our Facebook group, which there'll be a link here below the video on YouTube. You can jump into our group and let us know that you'd like to participate with us. Or if you're watching this as a recording, then feel free to leave a comment below the video. Let us know what you think. And that's that. But anyway, I want to give my friends an opportunity to introduce themselves, and then we can get going on this book. Jump out, guys.
Hello, this is Catherine from Boulder, Colorado.
In Las Vegas, Nevada.
I didn't hear you jump out, Karen. Mm-hmm.
Oh, finally, I got the mic off.
There you go.
I had this little tip that said, muting a lot tip. You can use the MK to mute and unmute, and I tried that, and that didn't work. And then my other thing at the bottom wouldn't work. I apologize. This is a funny way to introduce yourself, but if you're one of these people that has to drag out what's going on, then that's me. I'm Karen Lohoff. I'm in Mesa, Arizona, and you'll be hearing more from me, that's for sure. Welcome, everybody.
Sorry, dog's barking in the background. Didn't want to unmute in the middle of that. Okay, there we go. Sorry, guys. Dog was barking at a squirrel outside, so it was getting loud in here. But okay, so anyway, I was going to go ahead and turn the conversation over to Karen and let you kind of lead us down the road to enlightenment on this one. You want to jump out and whenever you're ready.
Okay. I found this book. I'm not sure how now, but it did turn up that I could get it on my Kindle. And so I did that. And I found myself wanting to read right through it as soon as I could. And I have really enjoyed thinking about it and rereading things. And interestingly enough, probably over the course of time as we study this book, we'll all talk about whether or not we have read or seen the movie, The Da Vinci Code. And as it turned out, we have a little, kind of a little library here where I'm staying. And I had piled that amongst some of my books that I wanted to read before we got to going with this. And when, just actually in the last week, I picked that up and started to read it and realized how much I was gaining from being aware of what was in the Da Vinci Code. I know that I'm I've been hiding under a rock compared to most people. I guess most people probably know about the Da Vinci Code. Certainly, I think, in my experience, books always give you more of a basis of things than movies. Still haven't seen that movie, but I was not really aware of how important and how special Leonardo da Vinci was in the history of the world until I started kind of thinking about and talking about these two books. And one of the things that I'd like to mention is, and by the way, anyway, it says, given the vast and diverse array of Da Vinci's works, it's not hyperbole to say that the world has never known a greater mind. But brilliance is not synonymous with accomplishment. Intellect is but a tool. One cannot help marveling that Leonardo managed to accomplish so much in his lifetime. Nor can the ambitious help but hunger for his secret. And it just happens that 2018 for me was a year of considerable reckoning. It was a year that I spent time in 4 different hospitals and a number of different emergency rooms, and have found myself living under some considerable care, which I had not anticipated that would be my fate. Probably most of you don't think that. And of course, being 99, made it to age 99, that's not a big deal. But anyway, my 50th class reunion was also held last year. And I was not fit to go. And a friend of mine was kind enough to bring the book that had been created after it. And I saw the accomplishments of many, many, many of my classmates, and only felt worse as I realized how little I'd accomplished in my life. So one of the things that I'd like for us to note as we go through this book is what we're learning about Da Vinci and what we're learning about what he accomplished. And so with that, let's start the discussion about whatever anybody else noticed about starting this book.
I haven't seen the movie Da Vinci Code, and I have not read the book, Karen. I too was quite, as I listened, I have this book on Audible, and as I listened to the introduction, and they were listing off all the contributions that he made, like I had no idea. I was completely unaware, and so far, I really don't know how far I've listened into it because it doesn't separate it into chapters on the Audible, but I'm really enjoying it. I'm really glad that you suggested it, and really looking forward to it.
I agree. I really did not know. I knew he had done a lot, but I did not know the real length and scope of what he contributed to. But also in reading, I realized that with all his accomplishments, he had lots of periods of where he just had, trying to get through to get his how he accomplished all he did. Sometimes, like in reading about, as we get later into, about the painting of the Last Supper, how much he went through just to get that painted, and the inner turmoil he went through, which I think is akin to all things we've all gone through in certain areas of our lives, of things that we're dealing with, and how much, for lack of a better word, of how certain things of how we want it to turn out, how we expect it to be, or how we play it out in our head of what we want things to happen, and we kind of let that stop us before we ever get started too. So, and I I think that was interesting to hear that even though he's this mind, and did so much, that he had a lot of same problems we had to even get to the points where he could uh, give all the contributions that he gave. So that was the other part of what I got out of the beginning and the introduction of, the humanness of him, but at the same point, the brilliance of what he had to bring and share and give to the world too.
Yeah, I like the fact that they kind of did tell a little bit about him at the beginning here, and they kind of reminded us that, of course, he was referring to himself as an unlettered man, meaning that he hadn't gone to, I guess, a school or official school where a lot of scholars had been learning, and that he taught himself a lot of things on his own and just kind of started with like an open mind, whereas they were referring to the fact that a lot of times that folks that have learned a lot from being taught in such a way is they're kind of closed off to the possibility of other options of figuring things out. And so he specifically, they were talking about how he verified things with his own eyes and avoided the false conclusions and incorrect assumptions that routinely handicapped other people, just by allowing for all possibilities rather than being closed-minded to things. So I thought that was just a really important a thing in there. Is just we've all got to remember to be more open-minded, because we might be wrong. I mean, who's to say? But I think that's part of why he made so many discoveries, is because he started with a blank slate rather than what everybody else assumed. So those are my kind of first thoughts.
This has really made me revisit some thinking that I realized I know over several different periods of my life about little I really learned about thinking. I know that I guess I perhaps disclose this too often, but I do think the things that we have in life are meant to teach us things. And having a mental illness that I have recognized as a thinking illness, has caused me to consider a lot of things in the light of how I think or don't think. And for me, seeing that in that introduction about the blank slate, or maybe it might be the next section right after that, where he's asked to use a blank slate, and he said, or he was, lauded for his ability to do that. I have had to think, can I do that? How well do I do that? And one of the interests this book has held for me is that I've had what some people call a faith crisis in the last probably 20, 25 years. And there's lots of times I've had to realize, now, where did I get that idea from? If I'm thinking this, where did that come from? And then I realized it came from that same place that I have recognized as likely untrue. As much as I had been convinced in my earlier life how very true something was. So I know that I have a tendency to blind myself to new ideas, in particular to the subject matter that Leonardo is in turmoil about. And that's one thing that really excited me. This group that I have been a part of for a few years, we have such variety and such excellent thinkers. I just love it that we're going to be talking about it, and already have had the things to say that we have. And I pass the torch on.
Yeah, I think this is a good book, and it's great that it kind of throws some stuff out there that that we can really think on. Um, I did want to kind of mention for those of you who maybe are not familiar with this book, it is a fictional story, but it's based on some factual stuff relating to Da Vinci. And but I just kind of wanted to just read a little section on here so we can keep that aspect of knowing this is anyway, it says in the introduction, it says, one final note. While the dialogue in this story is fictitious, the key artwork, people, relationships, and many of the events are real. Leonardo did work for the Duke of Sforza, fight with the prior of the church housing the Last Supper, and maintain a friendship with Niccolo Machiavelli, author of The Prince. Leonardo constantly fell behind schedule and ultimately failed to complete many of his most promising works. Fortunately, The Last Supper was not among those. But I just want to kind of bring that to light, just in case anybody who's not read this knows, what we're talking about. I think this is just a really interesting way of looking at things, and that, it's just remember that we've got to have an open mind, and that maybe what we've been taught all along in our childhoods may not be, it may just be something that we need to just look at from a different point of view to fully understand maybe the deeper meanings versus the surface meanings of things. Because sometimes I think one of the things that it addresses in this book is that sometimes things that we are taught are self-serving to the people who are teaching them to us. And so therefore, when we kind of look at things from our own perspective, then we can get a better understanding and make use of that information in our own lives in the best way that works for us. That's my thoughts anyway.
I agree. I think one thing that I found quite astounding in my faith crisis journey or experience is considering who is God. Now, I don't want to turn this book into a religious discussion that might create any kinds of problems for anybody. I just want to mention that for me, the first crack appeared when I realized how exclusive things were with what I had been trained with, because of course, with anything Christianity related, most of us tend to think of loving everyone, accepting everyone, and all of this. And I was seeing such exclusivity in terms of, well, we don't believe, like in Buddha, or something like that. And one of the things that I read last night, and I'm towards the end of reading the book, The Da Vinci Code, and the female character is asked if she's acquainted with the Bible, and she says, not really. She says, my grandfather and I don't know that she said it in this term with this word, but the idea I had was, reverenced Da Vinci. Now, who of us have ever heard of that? I mean, Da Vinci wasn't trying to be God or anything like that, but here is someone who had studied him all his life. And when you consider all the things that were talked about in the introduction about the things that he's been involved with, I mean, were I able to even understand or study or take a class in some of the things that he had drawn pages and pages and pages of books, of sketches of and written works about, you could focus your life around someone that accomplished, and it's just amazing to me how many of us do worship a God of our own making. We've created something certainly from those who've taught us, but then we've managed to put into that what we can live with. So I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Absolutely, Karen. I think that right now, the point that I'm at is basically none of us know what the hell is going on with 100% certainty. And you can pretty much believe whatever you want to believe, and you can choose to believe things that make you happy and more comfortable in life, or you can choose to believe things that torture you and make you sadder in life. And you can choose to believe things that, encourage you to help other people or encourage you to hate other people. It's really up to us. And right now, my favorite image of God is the one that comes from the movie The Shack. And I love that movie. I've always, from the time I was a child, being taken into different churches, which were Christian based, but which were, I found to be extremely exclusive of most people. And although I always felt the love in those churches, I also felt so much judgment and things, and I just have never in my heart believed that whoever God is a judgmental person. I think judgment is a human condition, and I don't think, I've never believed in a judgmental God. And so in the movie The Shack, if you haven't seen it, I encourage you to rent it and watch it. That's the God that I believe in. For now, that's what comforts me, and that's what gets me through the days.
I haven't seen that one. I'm gonna definitely look it up, Catherine. And I think for me, yeah, I mean, I was raised as a Christian, and I went to a Christian school for pretty much my whole entire school existence. And we were talking about, or Catherine, or you were both kind of mentioning the whole aspect of, on one hand, the Christians, they are supposedly open minded to everyone, but then on the other hand, exclusive. And I feel like, because I had a lot of friends that came from a lot of different churches, whether they were Lutheran or Baptist or Catholic, or any number of different ones, and every single one that I would go to, even though they had some similar teachings, they all were like, we are the only ones that are right. And I always felt like, how can that be? I mean, how can we have, like, go to one church with thousands of people and they believe this thing, and then we go to another church and they believe something different, and they, even though they have some core teachings that are similar, they can be anti each other, which I just never understood that. And as I've gotten older and studied more and more different types of religions and spiritual ways of being, and even people who are not religious and that are just more into nature, if you will, or thinking of Mother Earth or whatever. I mean, everyone teaches some of the same things, and it just never sat well with me that we should be anti each other. And I don't feel like that's how God would be. I mean, why would God create all of this and then have us be fighting with each other about who's right about God? It just doesn't make any sense to me. So um, I love the fact that in here he talks about starting with an open slate and then examining, what we do know or what we think we know, and then going from there. So I'm excited about that.
Just so you know, you can actually go to YouTube and rent The Shack for like $3.99. I had a rider. I'm a Lyft driver, for those of you that don't know, and I had a rider. We had a fairly long ride. We got into quite a lengthy discussion that day, and one of the things that he told me about was that movie. And so I decided I would rent it. And since then, I have purchased multiple copies to give to people. It was written by a man for his children. He wanted his children to know a loving God. And I just think I have encouraged my grandchildren to watch it. I mean, I just think that it's right on point. It has, and even just a few days ago, and you guys know my life is kind of crazy, but just a few days ago, I have a lot going on in my life right now, and it all seemed to kind of be just going down the drain, and I was just praying to Papa, and that's one of the things in this movie, The Shack. They refer to God as Papa, and I was praying to Papa, and I'm like, Papa, please just give me a sign that you're hearing me, because like I just need to know that you're there. And I asked for a specific sign that I often get from Spirit, and I didn't get that sign, and so my heart kind of dropped a little bit. But then my phone went off that I had a ride, and I went to pick up this person, and I have given thousands and thousands and thousands of rides, and I have probably picked up the same person maybe 5 times, 5 different people I've picked up more than once in all that time. So my phone goes off, I go to pick up the person, and it is the man who told me about the shack. And and so I was able to thank him and tell him what an impact, and it was obviously a sign to me that I was being heard. And then as soon as I dropped that man off, this song came on the radio called The Blower's Daughter. And you've probably never heard that song, but it's got a line that it repeats, and it just keeps saying, I can't take my eyes off of you. I can't take my eyes off of you. And to me, that was another sign. So I don't know who God is, but Papa's listening. I can tell you that.
Would you spell out that movie? Because I'm not sure that I got it.
Sure, I'll put it in the chat for you, but I'll also say it out loud for people that might not be able to access the chat later. It's called The Shack. So that's SHACK, The Shack.
Great. Thank you so much. When you were talking and you were referring to Papa, one of the things that I had kind of concluded when I was thinking about, well, where am I going to go now? Because I think Sam summed it up pretty well, that even all the different Christian denominations, it seems like everybody wants to claim that they're right, and yet they're all different. So how can that be? And I really don't want any more of that. But I don't mind. I love having communities online, because I can basically be, unknown, unnoticed, and I can glean the things that I want to. And I've always enjoyed near-death experiences, and I spent quite a bit of time after kind of getting settled after all this stuff I told you about, being in all the different hospitals, watching more, and they have just proliferated on the internet, watching more. And then I finally found some I could read, and there's something different about that too, whether they're short or a little bit more lengthy. But one thing that I felt good about, because I had long decided that the sun, S-U-N, is the sun, S-O-N, not literally, but in a way that I could glean some information from, like seeing the rays of the sun through the clouds on a darkened day. You look at those rays and you realize they're there all the time anyway. You just can't see them. Or you think about when you're in the house and the sun's rays are coming in the windows and you can see the dust motes, and you realize they're all the time. You just can't see them. And it really helped me to do that. And I listened to a near-death experience of someone whose experience was coming towards the light and recognizing the sun, and then getting close and seeing, I think the first was a yellow light, and then seeing behind that a white and larger light. And for me, that was an enlightening reference, because since that time I have been able to trust. And for me, the trust is, as you were saying, Catherine, that the judgment's not there. I'm not, I'm not praying to, whether or not I'm worthy of knowing that I'm being heard in that period of time or whatever. I'm in the light. I just enjoy being able to fashion for myself that which others have found, beneficial to them. Okay.
I like how you're talking about the sun, Karen. One thing that I've felt, over the years is, for me, it's been just nature in general, and particularly like the wind and the breeze flowing through the trees, and when I'm in nature and I can feel that presence physically, and have the kind of, I don't know, the feeling of always being surrounded by something that is, I don't know, more than just myself, and just that connection to everything. And I don't know, I'm kind of at the point in my life, and from everything that has happened with me, is not so much seeing God as a individual, or a being per se, as much as just a connection between all of us and everything. And I don't know. I'm still out on exactly my definition of what God might be. Um, so maybe when we were looking through this book, as we'll figure it out. I don't know. A number of years ago, I found the book Conversations with God, and that really resonated with me. And I don't know if either of you have read that one, but that one, for me, it was like a light bulb came on, and I was like, dang, that's what I've been feeling all along, And but I had to be open to it, because there for a long time, I'm like, I was so anti God and everything, that I wasn't even open to looking at anything that had anything to do with religion or spirituality or anything. And So I had seen that book before and never wanted to pick it up because it talked about God, and that I had an issue with that. And so, and just being able to move through my life and be open to other possibilities after being closed off for so long is it's pretty big for me. And even picking up this book is pointing more in that direction again. And I like that it just starts off with be open. So, or he's open, so that's how he figures things out. So I'm you know I'm glad about that. This is my little grand boy. This is Owen. Say hi. Say hi. Can you wave?
Hi, Owen.
Can you wave? Wave your hand. He's like, I don't know. I don't know.
Well, I'm really glad you suggested this book, Karen. And actually, the book that I had suggested we read next is very much along the same lines from what I can see, and it may be a great follow-up to this book. I don't know. We'll see. But I agree with you too about the sun, and it is for some reason. Even yesterday, as I was driving back from Longmont, so I was coming towards the mountains, and there were a lot of clouds, but then there was this like one little area where these sun rays were coming down and just illuminating everything, and I was like, that's God right there. So, and that seeing those sun rays sometimes, or seeing those dust motes, really brings me comfort in just the right moments when I need it, and it always amazes me. Like I picked up somebody yesterday, and we were able to exchange some very helpful information for each other. It astounds me who God puts in my car. It really does.
I don't know if you remember, but I drove taxi about 10 years ago for a couple of years. And, driving taxi is in a whole different situation. Well, not necessarily a whole different situation, but to get into those big Fords, I can't think what they're called right now. And generally, um, they're older, and they were able to be maintained cheaply over a long period of time. But there is something special about being in a car with people. The things that can be talked about even amongst strangers. It is truly special. And now I'm kind of in the backwards end of that, where for me to even get to a doctor's appointment or whatever, I'm being picked up by a medical transport. And what I love to do is to find out what someone's interested in and share what I can. And I feel sometimes that is one of the best things that I can do now, is just be a little bit on target with somebody else and share some of the things that we're doing. And I feel like if we choose carefully the kinds of things that people will want to know about and say something about, we can expand this group to where it really is, if not so large when we meet, it's something that will be viewed many times on YouTube. And I think sharing our community, the community that's been with us during the time that I've been active with this, is one of the greatest gifts that we can offer today. I'm just thankful for everybody that's a part of this.
And we are so glad to have you back, honey. greatly missed.
Okay. Sorry, I was on another tab. I wanted to check one of my links. I was gonna just mention for anybody who does want to participate with us or wants to see what we've talked about in the past, if you go to SaturdayMorningMastermind.com, that's going to take you to our post in our Facebook community that will link you, has a link to get into this meeting room when we meet, and also all the links to all of our replay playlists on YouTube, and just a list of all the books that we have discussed. So again, that's SaturdayMorningMastermind.com, and I'll put a link in the description as well, so that you can connect with our community as well as the Saturday Morning Mastermind links. So, and does anybody have anything else they want to add before we wrap up for today?
No, I'm good.
Karen? All good? Oh, I see you talking, but I don't hear you. There you go. Try and say something now. You're unmuted now.
Okay, I was just going to try and come and visit us if you can. Come join us next week, or leave us a note on the website, or join us on Facebook, or whatever you can. And everybody have a good weekend. Thanks so much, Catherine. Thanks, Sam.
Yep, and thank you, Catherine and Karen. And again, for those of you who are watching, there'll be some links down below the video. If you liked our discussion today, please click on like and subscribe to our channel. That way you'll get notified each time we upload the next recording. And with that, have an awesome, amazing weekend, and we'll see you next week on the Saturday Morning Mastermind. Bye for now.